everyone. This is Elise with Limelighters, and I am joined today by the wonderful and beautiful Miss Amy Jackson with Learn Blog Photography. How are you doing today, Amy?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited for this interview. Today we're going to be diving into questions about doing your own photography with a smartphone. Both of us are professional photographers, so we're more, used to the DSLR and all of the terminology. In this interview, we're going to kind of break it down a little bit for people who don't have that background. So my first question to you, it is possible to take photos with your cell phone. So what are the top 3 tips you have that someone could use today to get some great photos for their business on their smartphone?
I think the first thing that they need to start with is to actually turn the grid feature on. I don't know of any smartphone that doesn't allow you to turn the grid feature on. So once it's on, they then need to realize that it's there for a reason and to actually use that grid and follow the rule of thirds. And it'll drastically help improve their composition most of the time. So that would probably be the first one.
Okay.
You kind of learn what soft light, how to find it, and you don't need something special in order to achieve it. And then kind of what goes along with that is don't use your flash. That creates such horrible lighting that you're definitely not going to get a quality photo out of it. You're just going to get a snapshot. So that would probably be the second one.
Okay.
And the third is never ever use your zoom feature. It is a digital zoom and you will not get a quality photo out of it. You're much better off taking the photo or walking yourself closer to the object and then cropping it later with the edit feature. So those are probably 3 of the first ones I would tell somebody that was just starting out and learning how to do photos with their smartphone.
Now, those are great tips, and I know what you're talking about with the thirds, but for someone who is like never dove into photography before, can you kind of give us a breakdown of what that means?
Well, the rule of thirds is basically a compositional rule where you look at like a tic-tac-toe board. Imagine that if you don't actually have the feature, don't want to turn the feature on your phone. So imagine that there's a tic-tac-toe board in front of you, and the most important things should line up on one of those lines, never between those lines. So if you're photographing a person, you would hope to get their eye kind of where one of those or 2 of those lines actually cross. If it's more of like a landscape photo, then you would want the horizon line on either the bottom or the top line. Again, never in the middle. So it's going to give you a better quality photo most of the time.
And I want to preface the further future questions with go join Amy's group if some of this is just going right over your head, because she explains a lot of this, which is why I like her group so much. She breaks it down. You get practice to take photos and you get honest feedback of your pictures if you need any help, and she's there to answer any questions. So I don't know if this will kind of go in with the question that I just asked, but are there any technical terms? Because I think some of those were pretty technical, but any other technical terms you think an amateur should familiarize themselves with when they start getting into photography?
Honestly, there are so many that the list could be endless.
Yeah.
To keep it fairly simple, probably again the most important one will be soft light, like I just in the last question, which basically means that the light is going to transition very softly and very slowly, and you don't get the very hard, dark shadows that go from shadow to bright like instantly. So that would be a highly important one. Again, rule of thirds and leading lines. That can be another really great compositional tool that people can use, which ultimately just means that there's lines kind of leading you through the photo towards the subject. So and check depth of field, understanding what depth of field is, and then what it takes in order to get a shallow depth of field, which means easily enough that you get that kind of blurry background that you always want or typically want when you see that nice portrait of somebody or something, and you know, it's beautifully in focus, and then the rest of it kind of blurs out and doesn't distract you from that one thing or two things that you're really looking at. Uh, However, we just recently, earlier today, had a very interesting discussion, and that should not be used if you're taking landscapes. You want to,
Yeah, I saw
so,
that.
so that would be another one. Just learning what a good subject would be, the thing that you're focusing on, and understanding like what noise or grain is, and that's kind of that uh, pixelated look in your photo. If you, especially at night, that comes on very easily with photos. And if you actually use that zoom feature, you're gonna find it then too. So,
Yeah.
uh, you know, there's obviously a lot of other ones that are highly important, but probably more important if you were actually going to get that fancy camera.
Yeah, and one of the terms that you had mentioned, the leading lines, oh, it's so important. To get someone to focus, you can use blur, the lines, you can use all of that to really maximize your photo and let it tell a story. And I think for someone doing, especially your audience, the blog photography, to have a supplemental photo that they take themselves. All of these tips are very, very helpful. So I just highly recommend everyone to join your group. Again, I'm just, gonna sit there and do that. Okay, so the next question. Flat lays. It is
Yes.
a big, boom just happened about flat lays. Okay, let's just start talking about flat lays.
Hey,
Just go. What do we need to know about flat lays right now?
they're an awesome hot trend right now. There's several things I think of about worrying about when I consider a flat lay, and one of those is obviously still the lighting. Lighting is huge in every photo. So again, you still want that soft light so you don't have the hard shadows. And the one thing that I think is also really important with the flat lay is that when you do it, obviously you're taking the photo directly above whatever you're photographing. And with your arms extended like that, you can really get a lot of shake out of the camera, and that's going to create a blurry photo that you really don't want. So try and be really careful and kind of brace the phone or your arms if you can to try and minimize that, or take a lot of photos and then be very careful as you look through them to see which ones have the least amount of blurriness to the objects. What the objects are laying on is going to be important too. I once actually took a flat lay on the top of my deep freezer and didn't think anything of it because it was like, oh, hey, it's a great white background, except it's a very shiny background. And so now I saw the outline of myself and the camera in the reflection of it. So be careful about what it's actually being positioned on so that you're not seeing yourself in the photo. And when you decide to put something else as a background, don't make it too busy, because something that's really busy is going to definitely take away from whatever it is that you want them to be focusing on. So you're going to just want to keep it simple. Never use your flash. I said that earlier. And when you go to set up the objects, a very common technique is to kind of set it up in a grid format. So you can kind of have it laid out, again, kind of like the tic-tac-toe board, or what do you call that? Just almost like a plus sign. So you have stuff in like the top left quadrant, bottom right, whatever. Or you can get just more creative and put things on angles and what's what I'm looking for? Kind of a lifestyle look to it. Keep it simple. Don't overdo it. And you should be pretty happy.
And I think this next question kind of ties in with that. When people are taking pictures, one of the things that I like to recommend, especially to real estate agents, because that's my number one client, is to not waste, because you have to take some time to do this. You have to take like an hour out of your day, set up your shot, get it done. Even though it's on a smartphone, you still kind of want to be patient about it, not just snap any old picture. But how would you recommend someone to incorporate their brand or their message or their theme, so that way they're not going, oh crap, I should have picked a different color flower. I should have had a different angle of this apple, or whatever. When they're taking a picture and they're incorporating their brand or their theme or their message, what kind of things do you think are a good, suggestions, some advice for when they're starting to incorporate their company into these photos?
I think kind of step back and take a moment and plan it a little bit. I think people try to rush in and just, like you say, just quickly snap a photo, and then it's never going to be as good as when you actually sit down and think it out and give it some thought about what it is that you're wanting to accomplish, what it is, the look and feel that you're going for. And obviously, you're going to want it to be consistent with whatever your company's attitude is. If it's a very business oriented business, where everyone's very formal, you're not going to want to obviously have, liquor or people with sandals and, if you're kind of have that cheerful, happy kind of attitude, you're not going to want to take very dark, very shadow filled photos, because again, the emotions that come with the photos need to be consistent from what you're looking at to the attitude that your business is trying to create. If you've taken your photo and there's really nothing in it that kind of has your company's feel, you could always add a watermark of your business logo or the name, something to help tie that photo back to you. Because sometimes there's a great photo, but it may not automatically kind of link to your business just the way it is. So you can always add that, and it doesn't have to be anything that's distracting or is really something that's going to make the photo look bad. It's just enough, something that doesn't have to be like the full intensity. You can change the opacity on it, and it's almost like it's a ghost. Still able to be viewed, still get the point across, but it's not going to deter from what you're wanting the people to see.